Well, good morning, everybody. To kind of continue the narrative we've set up this week with the pattern, I'm going to just take you back to yesterday's satellite imagery like I normally do and just kind of show you where everything is at this point. That deeper trough that we've been monitoring that's coming through the Pacific Northwest is sitting, at least last night, still sitting over parts of Oregon. And it's pretty deep. I'll show you a closer look of it in a few minutes. We did have a wildfire problem here in Northern California and parts of Southern Oregon yesterday. I'll show you that smoke as well. But yesterday, just as the sun was setting here, we watched what was left of the convection that went through Oklahoma, kind of spinning its way up through Illinois. I kind of misclassified this. I thought it was going to be more of a what we call mesoscale convective system. Remember, I said that quite a bit in the last couple of days. It's really not. It's just a smaller, low-pressure center. There's not much convection in this right now. And there's a lot of stratiform rain with this. I'll show you that on radar in just a few seconds. But other than that, we are watching the deep convection that's beginning to form here off the southeast coast. We're going to get you a new update on where we think that heavy rain is going to go, which is still coming quite a bit inland. And just watch last night, right as the sun was setting, some of the storms that were in parts of Colorado, parts of Wyoming, but Nebraska, South Dakota. Some of these were just quite large and did produce some severe weather reports there. But I wanted to take you back to the Pacific Northwest and show you yesterday because you can see the actual center of the upper level low spinning here right over the Oregon-Washington border. And then later in the day, you can see the smoke that's coming out of those wildfires I mentioned here in parts of California and Oregon. Much deeper convection in the mountains, and so this is a pretty potent system that's going to be rolling through. But whenever you think about the depth of a trough like this time of year, we think about how much cold air is in it. And today's all hazards weather map really shows us that we've got quite a bit of cold air. So these blue colors you're seeing here all represent well, at least these two represent frost advisories, and this is a freeze warning. So frost advisory, freeze warning. This is actually a winter storm or winter weather advisory. So we're there. We're talking about that now. We have red flag warnings on 30 to 35 mile an hour winds coming through the Central Valley of California. There's some stronger winds in Montana. There's also some air quality issues in parts of Minnesota. And there is a frost advisory out this morning for parts of upstate New York as well. So this is certainly a setup here right now that's bringing in some adverse weather across the northern tier of the United States. On radar, let's get this playing here. This is kind of our last 10 to 12 hours or so of radar. And again, we can see the storms over Florida. We watched the low kind of spinning up into Illinois this morning, locally heavy rainfall here. We can see that round of storms that rolled through the plains last night. You can see them here. And then the deeper low that's moving through the Pacific Northwest. We add all that up, and this is what you get for the last 72 hours of total accumulated precip. In fact, it just turned 6 o'clock. Yeah, I got the new data in. So this is through 6 a.m. this morning here, looking at just the past 3 days of rainfall. Now, we're going to be adding quite a bit to this in the coming days, and the newest model trends have gotten even wetter in this area. So this is now just the latest update for the next 7 days on total accumulated precipitation. And I'll show you this in a moment, but the low that's rolling through here is just slowing down, and it's going to get cut off, and therefore we're going to have several days of stronger storms here, the next 3 days right in this area, and then heavier rainfall as a result. We then watch right here off the coast as a much deeper low forms, and it could bring some heavy rain into the parts of the coastal Carolinas, maybe into the Appalachian Mountains, but here into parts of Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey. I mean, we're just going to walk right along the East Coast. We're drier in the southwest, but a deeper trough is coming in the northwest, which is why we've seen the models trend much wetter in this area. So it's important to know about the heavy rain that's possibly coming into those areas that have wildfires right now. But coming back to the central part of the United States, and I'm doing that on purpose because this is the area that we've been so very, very dry. And tomorrow we'll give one last check-in this week on what's going on in the Mississippi River at Memphis. It's still about 8 to 10 feet below low stage, but with all that moisture coming into this area, we could start to see some improvement. Same thing for the drought areas in North Carolina and Virginia and right here along the Willamette Valley. So these three big areas we had spent so much time talking about for the last month are now beginning to get the better chances for the moisture to come in. So this is how it looks right now at the upper levels. And I'm kind of showing you just how bunched up the jet stream is here coming off the North Pacific. But here's the subtropical branch, and it really accelerates when it comes here across North America. And then there's that deeper trough. This is the one that's going to get cut off as it moves out here into the plains toward the upper Midwest over the next few days. So that's our setup. There is a severe weather risk with this. We're going to watch today the Red River Valley of the south and then central Nebraska here, but expect storms to kind of erupt all along this ejecting wave coming out into the plain. So that's today on the 21st. Here's tomorrow on the 22nd on Friday. Again, we're going to watch that same area in parts of Nebraska, South Dakota. And then as we get into Saturday, this will be our equinox, a large area as the low opens here into South Dakota. To the south of it, we're going to watch this whole corridor here for the risk of some stronger storms. Okay, in addition to that, I wanted to just kind of bring you up to speed on where we are this year with respect to severe weather reports. I haven't done this in a while. So I just want to show you, first of all, our tornado count. So what we've got right now is we are pretty well above average on tornado reports. Average would be 1,218 through September 19th. We're at 1,310. So we're about 100 over what the average is. But the other two metrics you use besides tornadoes, like hail is way above average. We're 1,000, or not 1,000, but we are normally at 5,900. We're at almost 6,600 reports. So we're well above average here in terms of hail. And then take a look at the wind reports. Normal would be 12,300. We are 17,120 right now. So extremely active year on severe wind. And there's a lot of concern for the crop and its standability late in the season should we get, like I just said here, some of these really strong winds that could be accompanied with this. Now, just so you know, the next 3 days, there are isolated tornado threats, but the main threat is going to be more hail and wind out of this system as it rolls through. So from there, I do want to bring you up to speed quickly before we get back into this on the tropics. We have Nigel. We still have our 70% probability out here, but they've upgraded this to now 40% chance of development. It still has too much subtropical characteristic to think that this could become a named system here, but the National Hurricane Center surprised me in the past, so we'll keep watching that carefully. But here it is. This is today's high-res NAM model. Let's get you up to speed. This is about 8 o'clock this morning. So you know the areas we're watching. We have the kind of the small low pressure center that's moving through Illinois. You're going to watch a much deeper low show up here and move toward North Carolina, Virginia. And then there's a very deep upper level low that's going to get cut off in the Midwest, but it's currently sitting over right now. It slid through Oregon and is now over the Snake River Valley. So here we go. This is through the day today, getting into this evening. So now you can start to see where we're watching for the severe storms here and here, but the upper level low barely moved. It's getting cut off from the flow. That's the problem. We also are starting to watch the system that's just off the southeast coast begin to develop. Now, we don't typically rely on the NAM model to handle this. There's a lot of reasons why, but one of the bigger reasons is some of the boundary conditions and how it's being forced by the GFS initial conditions, so it tends to not do very well, but just keep an eye on it anyway. What the NAM is doing, I'm going to show it to you better in the European in a moment. But as we work our way through tonight into tomorrow morning, the wave is still trying to make its way out of the mountains. And here it is by the time we get into Friday evening. So this is where we're going to keep an eye on the risk of those strong to severe storms. Look at the rain that could possibly be coming into parts of Montana, hitting some drier fields here by Friday night. And you can now see the depth of that low being forecast by the high-res NAM. So I just went you through Thursday night. Now we went through Friday night. Let's go ahead and play through the overnight hours and get out to Saturday. Now by Saturday, the low is finally coming out of Wyoming, getting into South Dakota. So it's going to take from today all the way to Saturday to get here. So it's a long-lived system because it's cut off. And you notice that the high-res NAM is just aggressively going after some development here and taking this system right into North Carolina. Now, I know what it looks like. This looks like a big hurricane, but we don't use the NAM to figure out what hurricanes could possibly form and develop and look like. But we need to watch this. This is more than nothing here, okay? So that gets you to Saturday midday. I want to go back to the tropics temporarily, though, because what I've been watching is here through Sunday is what could be coming out in this area. So now you start to see the models are clustering in on a deeper low in that area. As I kind of click play here, we see it quickly dying as it moves along the coast, but there is that system behind it. It's got a 70% chance of developing, but as you can tell, the models just want to take whatever it's got and pull it out to open ocean. So this system back here, not a system I'm overly concerned about, and again, nothing forming in the Gulf, despite the conditions at the ocean surface being so conducive to tropical cyclone development. So yeah, we got to watch this guy, so we need to take another view of it, and we're going to look at that here in a moment at the European model. Before we do that, though, I want to show you why this low takes so long to get there. Whenever we see deep, turns like this, we call these meridional shifts, right? So the jet stream's moving more north-south than it is east-west, it's easy for the top part of this to break over and cut off whatever's beneath it. It's helping that there's the subtropical jet still here, helping this thing to spin up on its southern side. So as we watch this evolve, the wave goes over the top, cuts off the low by tomorrow morning over parts of Idaho like we talked, and tries to let it eject by Saturday here. But the only thing pushing this along is this weaker branch of the subtropical jet, where those jet stream level winds are only about 70 miles an hour. Normally we can get them up here, as you see, like look at this jet streak. Those speeds are 150 approaching 170 miles an hour. So 100 mile an hour faster there than here. So what ends up happening is over the weekend, that low just sits and spins. And this is where it'll be by Monday morning, still over like Sioux Falls to Mitchell, maybe sits right up top of Mitchell, South Dakota. And while that sits there and spins, it doesn't move. So that's why we'll be talking about this all the way through the weekend and its rainfall. And then you see behind it, the big kicker eventually gets in. It's this deeper trough that comes into the Pacific Northwest. Okay, so the European model's interpretation of all of this. So let's play this through today, getting into tomorrow. This is Friday and Saturday. Now remember, the low is just now here. So this is where we're expecting our rain and storms to develop on Saturday. And you've already seen this whole corridor is expected to have strong to severe storms. Now remember, the ECMWF is not convection allowing, so we just have to watch the parameterization of convection in this area and just keep a close eye on these storms. But this is quite impressive. You saw that this low, let me take you back. Watch over here on the East Coast. That low, does tighten up and could, according to the models, this could be a named system. It could be tropical storm strength as it comes through there, delivering some locally heavy rainfall. Now, as that system moves, the one in the middle part of the country doesn't. So here's Sunday morning, getting into Monday and Tuesday. It's still sitting there, even as high pressure builds in. But at that point, early next week, we watch a much deeper low come into the West Coast. This is what it looks like on Monday morning, getting out there through Tuesday. And that could really bring some heavy rain into coastal North Carolina, the California, Oregon, and Washington. So watch that. That gets you out there to next Tuesday and Wednesday. By next Thursday, there is the chance that whatever is coming through here does initiate another storm system in the midsection of the country. That's about a week from now. We'll have to see how that one evolves. But a lot of high pressure sinking in next week into parts of New England and the Canadian Maritimes, and then Ontario and Quebec right off the Great Lakes. So let's add all that up. First, on the wind side of it, I want to see, I'm very curious how strong the models are projecting these winds. Now, I try to make a break in my color bar. I made it at 36 miles an hour from the kind of blues up into this shade because I'm trying to see where we approach tropical storm force winds, and you now start to see that in here. So I have a feeling that the National Hurricane Center might make some adjustments here. In fact, I'm just curious. I should have pulled this up for us earlier. But the National Hurricane Center, okay, 7-day. Yeah, they're still at 40%. I'm just reading this really quickly here. Gusty winds. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to go after it or not, increasing the risk of that particular system. But I am expecting some stronger winds with this as it moves on shore. You then see with that low as it curls up here, same thing. Some 20 to 30 mile an hour gusts are expected, maybe stronger in some places with that storm system in the midsection of the country. And then look at the size of the low that's coming in here late this weekend. That's a monster. So that's what you got. That's about a week's worth of wind gusts. Let's add up the rainfall now from the European model. So as we play it forward, let's just go out there 5 days and let it sit here. There we go. So for the next 5 days, pretty heavy rainfall where that low gets cut off here in the Dakotas. Now remember, this is an area that's mostly in drought. And we're going to see to the south of it, hitting this side of the Mississippi Valley, the Missouri Valley, again, area in drought. We see the heavy rains coming into, parts of Virginia, North Carolina, New England area that's in drought. And then you notice the last bit over here, this deeper low that comes into the Pacific Northwest and adds more to this. So out there about a week, that's what we're getting out of the models here in terms of total accumulated precipitation. Now, let's take it from there and show you the probabilities, because this is where I've mentioned things have increased. Over the next 10 days, again, this is the 90 to 100% chance. You can see these areas, 90 to 100% chance of getting at least an inch of rain. And where it's really improved, or really increased, I should say, is all through this corridor here. And then right into parts of the mid-Atlantic, right in through there. So that is the chance of 1 inch. Here's the chance of 2 inches. And if we're looking for some really heavy rain, this is the probability of 4 inches. The drier side of this looks something like this. These are the folks that are going to be drier overall comparatively, and this is the probability of getting less than a half of an inch of rainfall. The upper level pattern, though, as I get out there to day 10, it still has those main features we talked about earlier this week. There's our 3 ridges. One, there's the second one, and the third one. And anytime we see 3 ridges and 3 troughs, okay, so there's 1, 2, 3 ridges, there's 1, 2, 3 main troughs, we would call this a wave number 3 pattern. And the lower the wave number, the longer the waves. The longer the waves, the more they don't progress forward. Short waves move quicker. Long waves advect planetary vorticity and as a result tend to slow or even retrograde. So the problem here is that this pattern that we have by day 10 may be stuck for a while. And that's why the new week 2 forecasts suggest wetter west, wetter along the northern tier of the United States, drier east. But if your flow's coming in like this, well, you have ridging here, so it's warmer and drier. It's in all 3 models. It's good to see multiple model agreement here. But we've now seen a wetter trend into week 2 in the Midwest. Okay, so I think that's the biggest piece I can show you that's evolved at this time frame. Now let's talk about temperatures before I give you an international update. This morning's forecast map for frost had an interesting feature on it. It's in the Dakotas. Do you see the difference between the way that we're forecasting frost here and then in parts of like upstate New York versus what you're getting right here in North Dakota? So as soon as this shows up, we're like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. There were some problems this morning with the National Digital Forecast Database lows only this morning. So right now I know that the lows here are in the 50s. There is no frost threat right now for North Dakota, but there is throughout the west, which we talked about. Let's take a look at what those high temperatures are up to, though. So they corrected this by the time they start forecasting today's highs, but they missed today's lows. Okay, that was a problem. So here we go. Rain, cooled air here, a lot of cloud cover here, and then the much deeper low that's over the west, keeping it cool. This is Friday, getting into Saturday. This is when heavy rains are moving up the East Coast. Deep low is moving out. The cutoff low is sitting over right here. And then what we see is going into Sunday and Monday, much more cooler air along the west. Getting into Tuesday and Wednesday, that's our setup. That's what the pattern seems to be doing. And the longer range we look, let's take you back here. Here's your next 5 days. This is day 5 through 10 and day 10 through 15. You've seen me show you that same animation, just updated each day. It looks just like this every single run. That long wave pattern getting stuck. That seems to be where we are. Okay, South America. Rainfall totals forecast by the models. Let's get you out there for a full week. By the time we're out a week from now, next Thursday, we still do not anticipate having meaningful rainfall in this area to get rapid planting completed. But every single model run shows that from day 7 to day 10, it tries to bring in more rain. But it always keeps kicking it further down the road. So tomorrow, it'll still be day 7 through 10 that the rains are coming in. I think it might be just an issue with the forecast model, increasing those rainfall amounts. But even if we take it out 10 days, the colors we need to see widespread in this whole area are up here. We need this 50 to 70 millimeters of rainfall. So there's only a few areas where they're likely going to pick that up, which means there will be planting done. But overall, the forecast is still maintaining the flow coming from the wrong direction here instead of here. Still very wet in southern Brazil, 2 different places. Some storms into Argentina, but overall not too wet in Argentina either. So let's take this and blow this out to an international view because I wanted to talk more about a couple other areas. Ukraine into this part of the Russian wheat belt, drier in the forecast, but quite stormy and wet throughout much of Europe. We then see, again, very wet late season conditions here in parts of India, much above average precipitation there. And this extends into parts of China as well on the headwaters of the Yangtze River. But the Manchurian Plain and North China Plain, this is the Manchurian Plain, this is the North China Plain, overall near normal to drier. We're wet in a very select area right in through here, coming through parts of like over the Philippines and then getting into Southeast Asia, but most of Australia is looking drier right now as well. On the temperature side of it, Australia is dealing with a pretty massive heat wave in the west, and they're going to continue to see a very, very warm spring. It's a warm fall for parts of Eastern Europe, getting into Russia, and you can also see how warm it is here underneath that larger ridge that's centered over the Hudson Bay. So just kind of a quick view here of what's going on internationally. And with that, I'll wrap it up. Tomorrow we should have some new long-range data that I'm looking forward to sharing with you, kind of giving you a new seasonal outlook. Just got our last little bit of data trickling in here this month, and we'll just keep you posted on it. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk again in the morning. Thanks.